Gracias,
Do you
amiga.
need expensive or cheap one?
I want the expensive one.
I don't
Give
care.
him the cheap one. I'm senior to him. I'm senior to nobody else, but I'm senior to him. Publix, what you get? You get nice animal.
Yeah.
Gracias.
I got the Stolies.
I am not a white liquor drinker, never have been.
Really?
Well, I say never. 40 years ago.
You mean you didn't like vodka? I mean tequila?
40 years ago, I realized why I should never drink clear. So I learned from my mistakes early.
I used to love margaritas. I'd even do shots with tequila.
Not me. Being raised in an Irish family, it was always just scotch.
Yeah. Took me only 15 years to learn how to drink it.
What's the brand that FDR used to drink scotch? It's not a real expensive brand, but it's a pure malt or something.
I thought it was Cuddy Sark.
Pardon?
Was it Cuddy Sark?
No, it was. It's less expensive. It's an inexpensive brand, relative. No.
B and Cuddy Sark were the same
It'll come to me.
My godfather was a distributor for Shetland and Company.
It's smooth. It's smooth. I know that. We first moved into Hunter's Ridge. This guy that we knew came out and gave me a water glass full of this stuff. A water glass.
You being the gentleman that you are, you drank.
I tried to, but it was a little more than I could quite handle in one.
According to our policies and procedures, Iris is checking on it now. It says we have to conduct a special meeting to interview the candidates and then followed up by no, it doesn't say regularly scheduled, a board meeting for the selection process. However, she is calling Terry Lewis now to see, should the board choose to pick a candidate today, whether or not they would be able to do so. We just want to confirm it with council at this point.
The next question is, I'm going to be a pain, but can we call some of these people and
Yes, sir, we're working on that now.
have them?
Yes, sir.
We could also move up our lunchtime too, a little bit,
Yes, sir.
Cancel lunch. We don't need lunch.
or compress it.
Could skip lunch.
Skip lunch. Unless they bring
Oh,
it
hell
in.
no.
Well, I know
I'll
Joe
see if
can't-
we can get
Joe
them
can't
on.
skip lunch. I've
No, and
known Joe
I
long enough to know that he could be in one of those Snickers commercials.
I'm a Joe Pesci when when I miss lunch.
we could talk about how bad the Super Bowl game was
Oh,
while we're
man,
waiting.
no.
You know what? Even if I was a Seahawks fan, I would have thought that was it.
It almost looked,
Like
it
they were,
almost looked like they
like
got
they'd
paid to
been
lose.
and made it convinced so that the spreads all went to heck.
Yeah, yeah, boy, it sure looked like the fix was in, didn't it?
But I think it got carried away. Once whoever was involved in it, then the
Well,
whole
first
morale
wheel-
went.
The first wheel fell off in the first 12 seconds, and then after that, the rest of the wheels followed.
Oh yeah. This guy I was with, he says, that screws up all the scores
Oh,
at
it
2
screwed up
points.
all the, plus it screwed up all of the,
Spreads and everything.
all the pools.
Oh, it
So when
did.
you thought you had a good number, boy, all of a sudden that 2 point. Imagine having a score of 5-0. This is the last time you saw a football game with a 5-0 score.
Yep.
Alex is out there now, I think.
If I was Manning, I'd announce my retirement.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, we got one here?
I think Alex is out there.
Oh, good.
I think what I'll do is if everybody's okay with that, I'll just start review this time.
Okay.
We'll just
Oh, that, yeah.
kind of rotate it.
Kind
that
of
way.
like the
Everybody
chamber
have- and I'll go
floor.
last.
I think a good idea.
Yeah. There's Alex. He dresses up well.
Morning.
Good morning.
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 Back to order, please. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Grantt. I think we're going to start with questioning from Commissioner Forbes.
Yes, couple questions, Alex.
Yes.
Number one, if you're appointed to this vacancy, will you be running for election in November?
I haven't made that decision yet.
So then, the next question I was going to ask you is, if you didn't get appointed, were you going to run in November? And I'm assuming.
Well, I might, you know, it could be a trial. You know, you could see how I work,
Right.
and, you know, I haven't made that decision at this time.
Let me ask you, I don't believe you were at the meeting on the 27th last week, the joint meeting with the county and.
No, sir, I had a business appointment.
okay.
Where, I'm in pest control business. I had work that.
What's your thought on where you think we're at, and what do you hope for, and what do you think we can achieve?
Well, my own feeling is I think we need to have a compromise situation here. I frankly feel that the Lee County Commissioners are certainly concerned about fragmentation in the emergency medical service. And I think what I see is if Bonita Springs is completely independent on ambulance service, then I think very likely Estero would join too. My problem here is we have the trauma 2 level with Lee County Memorial Hospital system. And I think that is a very critical point that we have to think about. And I think that is a top priority issue. We have a certain amount of priority 1 emergency medical calls, but the amount of priority medical calls are probably maybe 2 or 3 dozen a year out of the couple of thousand that we really run. And a lot of those may have to be handled by level 2 trauma, and that is controlled by the Lee County hospital system. They're the ones that have the license for emergency medical service for priority 2, for trauma 2, I'm sorry. And I think that is a critical portion. Now, I know there are medical calls that our fire department is well handled and taken care of. However, I do feel very strongly that fragmentation is not a good system when it comes to emergency medical care service. What I would suggest maybe is if we can do some sort of a compromise. Now, we have the ambulance service, as I understand, the Lee County is back and the station's here. If I were on the board, and this is my own compromise, I would say, if we are charging you, let's say, the $90,000 or $100,000 a year for them to have their people here using our station, which we didn't charge before. Compromise that I would offer would be if you make your ambulance, the 2.5 ambulances, 3 ambulances manned fully by Lee County EMS, we would forego the addition of the 90,000 or 100,000, or I don't know what it is, it's $9,000 a month. Let's say 120,000, and have their people here 24 hours a day on 3 shifts. If we need to, we could have 1 ambulance that Bonita Springs would purchase, and we would have 2 of our personnel under Lee County Health Director, and have that 4th ambulance stationed at station number 1. That would be my compromise.
Anything else?
Any more questions? Commissioner Conforti?
At several meetings, I've heard you comment that you felt that we had cost overruns or we were double dipping the amount of money that we had spent on this building and several others. I'm wondering if you have knowledge of a problem or if you're just making comments because you don't understand what.
No, sir. The reason I have made that, I have looked at all the audits, compared the audits to the budgets to audits. And if you look at the budgets going back all the way to the year 2000, you'll notice that for each fire station construction cost, there has been a tracking number. That tracking number is consistent with a fire station. In other words, Fire Station 1, Fire Station 2, Fire Station 4, Fire Station 5. It's a different end number on that tracking. Okay, if you add what was in the budgets and the tracking numbers, you will come up with a different figure when you add the comparison over a period of time of what the audits were for the same fire, because it's in the audits you can determine for which fire station that money was spent. And when you add one set of figures, that's the budget set of figures, versus the audit set of figures, you'll notice that there is a difference.
Commissioner
And-
Conforti, can I interrupt?
Sure.
Yep. Alex, you present these numbers many, many times. Do you have an intention of bringing this to some head or to maintain this derogatory statement about this department? If you have some evidence of anything wrongdoing, would you do something with it?
Yes,
Tell
sir.
us what it is, or refrain from coming month after month and criticizing the department?
Well, this is a fiduciary responsibility of the board, in my opinion.
It's
The
been
board
explained.
entertained you and brought you in and gave you opportunities.
I understand that. I understand that.
And our
But
finance
the-
directors have explained this to you, and they've given to the board copies of what they've given to you.
I understand that. But there is, in my opinion, a difference of opinion. I showed the information that I had been given and I had the numbers I had showed to my certified public accountant last year. And he said that there was a problem.
Is he willing to come and talk to us about that, your certified public accountant?
I'm certain if you wish, I can
I
have
think,
him do
I think we
that.
need a formal presentation or an accusation or something from your lawyer. We've got to end this, Mr. Grantt, and I don't think it'll ever end unless we force you to do that. I want to make a statement, by the way, and I made this to the gentleman who preceded your presence here. I hope, and strongly hope, that if you have, or any candidate has a strong personal animosity towards this department, towards the firefighters, towards their salaries, towards the union, or towards any of the commissioners, that you reconsider your application here. If you are not able to come in and deal fairly with this department and with the public, then I would wonder if you should be a candidate. That is not a personal statement to you. It's going to be made to all of the candidates. But you, particularly your continuing charges against us, is very disturbing to us and disturbing to the public. I ask you, finalize it, make a decision, let's end it.
My responsibility, if I see something that I feel is in error, was to bring it to your department. Now, I felt that your department did not fully appreciate what I had mentioned and did not, in my opinion, as a taxpayer, take proper action regarding that.
Our auditors have cleared everything that you sent to us and have found no discrepancies. So that's where we have to, that's where the buck
I
stops
have
with us.
asked, I had a letter several years ago to ask the auditor, your auditor, about that. And I had been denied that by this group.
Well, the problem,
And I
I think
have
Commissioner Fitzgerald,
I have that in writing, sir.
but Commissioner Fitzgerald brought out a point, and you just reiterated the fact that you have a letter from several years ago. This has gone on for several years. I've been here 5, it's going on for 5 years. There's not anybody who sits on this board would accept any discrepancies or anything that is illegal. And if you think that that's the case, then there's an issue here. But having said that, we've gone through 2 different financial directors. We've gone through legal, we've gone through auditors, and there has been no discrepancies that have been documented or determined. So as far as I'm concerned, it's over.
Well, that's your opinion, sir.
Anybody have any further questions?
Yes, I have another question. Several months back, you made a comment that we should house homeless people in the fire stations because we had so many empty rooms. Was that a joke, or are you serious?
Well, I am serious on this. Seriously, I mean, we have the extra space.
And you would think that housing homeless people in a building that is not always occupied when the firefighters are out, that would be fine, right?
Well, you could always make you could look and see how, I'm not saying you can make a determination as to how many homeless people could be housed in that have clearance as far as not having any records, criminal records. You can make that determination, sir.
Well, I highly doubt we could have a building that wouldn't have somebody from this department there 24 hours a day to watch these people.
Well, maybe some of these homeless people would be able to make certain that if they are credible people and have, shall I say, a good clearance with the sheriff's office, which you could run a background check on them, they could be of some assistance to the fire department at no cost.
Any further questions?
No.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Nope.
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Am I dismissed then?
I'll see you out, sir.
I have other recommendations if you would wish.
No, this is an interview. If you get appointed, we'd love to hear your recommendations.
Pardon?
I said if you're appointed to the position, we can hear all your recommendations at that time.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Time? Off the record? I'm going to make a recommendation to you, Commissioner Chairman, that you make the personal statement that I've been making before about hoping that the candidates,
Sure.
and that way, I don't want it to come from me personally, come from the chair, might be better. But it's basically, you've heard it once, I'm worried about personal, long-term, strong animosity to the department or the facets of the department that might affect a person's ability to serve both the department and the community. I was going to bring that up with Mr. Grant. Anyway, I'm not going to do it. So if you would make that, I would appreciate
Can I
it.
see a copy of it?
Well, I wrote it in scribble a little bit,
That's right.
but you can get the gist of it, I
Yeah.
think. Is that okay? I think it's about. Yes,
That's the list.
Commissioner, while you're doing this, if you have a personal reason not to do it, and any one of the candidates.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly with
Yeah,
that.
okay, I know. But, you know, it's like one candidate may change your mind, but it doesn't make any difference.
We're not too far behind. I think we're 10 minutes behind, more or less.
Okay, I'm gonna take a bathroom break.
No, the next person is scheduled for 11:15, right?
Yeah.
Typically, they get here
Yeah.
10 minutes early.
Jeez. 11:15. I think. Well, hell, Eddie's got his. Shit.
Hand that back to Ed, please.
I'm gonna go. Oh, no, Eddie's still out. It's lunch break.
tonics